Here are some tips to instantly improve your Survivor gameplay. Now I have 5,000 hours in this game, and these are some tips that I wish somebody would have told me 4,900 hours ago. So let's get into it. Always make sure to look behind you when you're on a generator. You never know when it's a stealth killer and they might sneak up and grab you or even get a first hit on you. So it's very important to always be looking behind you while you're on a gen. Tip number 2, whenever you're looping, always make sure you know where the next loop is. There may be a time where you have to drop the pallet early or take a hit, and you have to be able to get to the next loop without going down. For instance, if you want to keep the killer shack pallet up and you want to waste a pallet that's not as useful, you can actually go to one of the outer loops around shack, chain it with shack, and use that pallet instead. Or in this example, Fun Bus is right next to me, but I don't want to use Fun Bus pallet. So instead, I'm going to waste the pallet at one of the weaker loops and allow me to get to Fun Bus, where I will be able to run the killer a lot longer here. Tip number 3, always be aware of what's going on in the game. As you can see here, we just finished this generator and somebody went down across the map. Both of us need to be healed, so instead of running to go get that person, we know the killer's nowhere near us. We can immediately start to heal each other and guarantee one full heal. Even if the killer hooks and runs right towards us, we guarantee one heal no matter what. It's because we were paying attention to where the down was that we were able to make this play. Tip number 4, always look behind you in chases as well. Every killer has a red glow unless they're a stealth killer. In those rare instances, it won't help you as much, but it still helps. When you look behind you in chase, you'll be able to see the red glow and you'll see if they're mind gaming you or if they're committing to a chase. And then you'll know if you need to drop the pallet, if you need to vault, or what you need to do next. Tip number 5, make sure to see if the killer respects pallets. This is something that rarely ever gets done, but when you're looping something, you could tell right here that the killer decided to not walk through the pallet because he thinks I'm going to drop it right away. Tip number 6, and probably one of the most important tips, always be hugging when you're going around a loop. Hug as tight as possible to whatever you're looping, whether that be shack, a random car loop, Fun Bus, whatever it may be. Make sure to hug it as tight as possible. By doing this, not only is it incredibly efficient, but it also makes it so if the killer isn't hugging as tight as you are, you'll gain a lot of distance on them, and when they swing, most likely they'll miss. But you never know with hitboxes in this game. It's very possible they'll hit you miles away. Tip number 7, when somebody's injured and they teabag next to you as a fellow survivor, that typically means that they want healing. It may look like just a friendly teabag, but majority of the time it means that they want healing and they know you're safe in that area and they're asking you to heal them. This is something that I feel like a lot of people know, but there are times where I teabag another survivor when I'm injured. They look at me, teabag back, and run away, and that's not at all what I was asking. Tip number 8. That being said, once you unhook somebody, 9 out of 10 times you don't actually have to run far away from the hook to heal. This is something I see a lot of new players do, but you could heal directly under the hook, especially if you know the killer's not around. Now, there are some killers who come directly back to hook after being unhooked, and in that case, you obviously can't heal there. This, although seems like a minor detail, actually helps a lot to control the pace of the game, because if you run all the way to the outside of the map, it takes so long to get one heal off. At that point, it's almost not even worth it. Tip number 9. Always make sure you're doing something, whether that's a gen, healing your teammate, getting somebody off the hook, doing a totem. All of these things are very important, and what won't help is sitting in the corner, going along the outside of the map, hiding behind a tree. I'm somebody who loves going for flashlight saves, so I completely understand hovering, but make sure you do a gen or two first. Tip number 10, just leave. As a survivor, I know, you really want to gloat in the killer's face and show that you won and try and get some saves at the end there, and although I admire this, personally, it's never a good call. I feel like almost every single time I've seen somebody try and gloat in the exit gate, they die for it. So, I mean, when you see that gate, you see, your chance, just take it, leave the game. Don't test them because you might end up like this person. Just because you hear the terror radius next to you doesn't necessarily mean the killer knows you're there. This is something I see very often where people hear the terror radius and immediately start to run, and the killer sees you while you're running. They could be chasing somebody else in the area, or they could just be walking around trying to find somebody. You don't have to immediately get off the gen the second you hear the terror radius. You could always look around. Again, make sure to look around while you're on a generator to know if the killer's in your area or around you. A lot of times the killer's just looping in the area next to you. Last but not least, tip number 12. Just have fun and enjoy the game. After all, Dead by Daylight is basically advanced hide and go seek. You won't learn more about loops, how to run them, the most efficient way to run them without playing the game. The more time, the more hours you put into the game, the more you'll understand the fundamentals. When you start taking things too seriously and you're only focused on winning, you don't really improve that way. The only way I personally improve is by making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. So the biggest tip I can give is don't take it too seriously and just try to learn from every mistake you make. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you guys like educational content, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment for what you guys would like to see next. As a player with 5,000 hours, I definitely know a lot about the game, although I still don't know everything. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.